Well, you gonna finish the chapter? And I kind of anticipated that. Green flowers. It's a lot of pressure to call it play. That's what it is.
Batting up the paper, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather bat before Babe Ruth. You get the good pitches in. It's time for us to start. Good to see everybody, and thank you, Clay, for teaching everybody everything about love on Wednesday. We're not just gonna cut there and go to the next chapter. I do want to finish what I was saying.
Apparently. Don thought that was a giggle, apparently.
Little giggle's cute and big giggle is, that's not true about Clay, is what you're saying. But you would know better than you. But I want to make sure that we finish up that discussion on love. And start with a couple of questions. Obviously this is a well-known passage in 1 Corinthians 13. How many of you either had this referenced at your wedding or have been at a wedding where it was referenced? Pretty much everybody. So why this passage on marriage and the marriage relationship in the middle of this book in 1 Corinthians?
It's not on the marriage.
There you go. That's my trick question.
It's an extension of his discussions about the use of spiritual gifts.
Yes. It applies in the context of marriage, sure, because there's love involved, and it's a great thing to discuss and have a better understanding of, and have a clear picture of what it is and how it acts and how we're to utilize it. But this is not a passage about marriage. This is not a passage about a relationship of a husband and wife. While it's applicable there, you look at the conversations that we have had, and so much of what we have talked about so far is the life of a Christian, a follower of Christ, being one that is selfless, one that puts yourself after others, one that gives up liberties for the purpose of love, one that considers the needs and the spiritual health of your brother before your own. And so with that being the conversation, and then recently the conversation being about spiritual gifts, and there being, a little bit of a power struggle when it comes to spiritual gifts. The intention of spiritual gifts was what? What was the intention of those gifts? Spread the gospel. Edify one another. Yeah, spread the gospel. So there was a purpose there. Whatever the spiritual gift was that was given or that was received, there was a very clear purpose. God decided who got what spiritual gift for very specific reasons. And just like anything, it seems, is, one person might have wanted that one, another person might have wanted this one, and there were some that were looked at as, more impressive or more valuable than others. And so it's almost like chapter 13 comes in and he's like, all right, let's pause. Let's review what love is. All right, let's discuss all the characteristics of it, so that when we do talk about the spiritual gifts, which verse 14 we go right back into them, that we have a good frame of reference from which to speak and to look at. I want to just kind of go through quickly some of the ones that was discussed already. I know you guys went through the first 4 verses or so. Verse 1 and 2 talks about some of those spiritual gifts as, if I speak of the tongues of men and angels, but I don't have love, I'm a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. I was a little offended by this, but I was at a work thing this week, and somebody just kept talking about how annoying cowbells were at Mississippi State. Look, if you're holding one, they're not near as bad, I'll tell you that. But I get what they were saying. Yeah, exactly. If there's somebody behind you going, like, yeah, I get it, okay? And, that can be quite a, it's, what's the purpose of those? It's useless noise, right? That is the purpose of it at Mississippi State, to get on other people's nerves, right? And we're good at that. Verse 2 says, and if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I'm nothing. So he spends these first 2 verses basically going through the spiritual gifts that have been laid out. But if it doesn't come from love, it's a worthless noise. It is not fruitful. If I do this without love, then I am nothing. So however much you think these spiritual gifts might elevate you, if you miss that part of it, then you're nothing. Verse 3, if I gave away all that I have, and if I deliver my body up to be burned, but have not love, I gain nothing. Again, if I'm willing to do all these things, but I do it for the wrong purpose, then it's worthless. Now, while we have a very specific conversation around spiritual gifts here, these same things apply to us. Think about all that you do. Think about all that you do in service to God. Think about all that you're going to do or have done here this morning. If you're here this morning because I'm supposed to be here on Sundays, and Andy will call me and hassle me if I don't come on Sunday mornings, that's not doing it out of love. That's doing it out of whatever, obligation, that sort of thing, and that's not going to be fruitful or mean as much. Yes, ma'am.
As you Clay, on the way home, I had this thought reading this too, that granted, he's not talking to just Jews, but this very much applies to their whole past history, right? They had all these special things because they were God's chosen people. But they always missed that love part, which is why we needed a better covenant. But God never had their heart. Even at this part, they thought they were an elevated, special people. And, you know, with this, like, God could raise up children of Abraham from stones if he wanted. You're missing the point. It's not, you're not supposed to be the special people so you can be a special people. It's so that you can fulfill what God's intention for it was. And so in some ways, I feel like this was a point back to them too, like for centuries, you have missed the point of being a special called out people for God.
And isn't that so often the conversation that we have, at least of the past few years, is where on the spectrum is it that we're, rules and laws and specifics of what it is that we're supposed to do, and then love and spirit of doing it, right? And there's this dichotomy in the religious world today of, is it that I focus on, all the details of what it is I'm supposed to be doing, or do I focus on, love and grace and those things? The answer's always been in the middle. Like, it's always been both. It always has been, and it always will be. Yes, we have to follow all the rules. We have to worship God the way he wants to be worshipped. We have to do the specific things he's laid out for us to do. But we have to do it with love. We have to do it with a relationship with God, and we don't do that without spending time with him. Okay. He jumps right in verse 4, and I know you guys cover these. Love is patient and kind, does not envy or boast, and is not arrogant or rude. As we look at these, and I tell you what, let me go ahead and continue to read these, and I just want to kind of get a big picture here. Said it does not insist its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in truth. All right, so let's pause there. And as I look at this, if we're talking about patient, kind, first, is it easy to be patient and kind? Okay, absolutely. I saw several heads shaking. No, it's not easy. And Jackie says, well, sometimes it might be. Sometimes it might be really easy to be patient and kind. Sometimes, and I'm doing my best not to make eye contact with my wife, we take advantage of those around us and the advantage of the fact that, they'll always be there, they'll always love us, and we kind of forget this aspect of it. I have said at work many times that we're talking about how we treat one another in the workplace, and it's not that hard to be kind. And the concept of just being kind is not that hard, but, when somebody does something to you or cuts you off in traffic or does this or that, it's very easy to kind of forget what it is that we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to act. So my question along those lines is how do we ensure that we're always patient and always kind? What are some practical things that you do in light of those who might pressure you or push you not to be so patient or not to be so kind?
When you go to be patient, somebody has hurt you more than likely, so you can't not ever feel hurt.
Yeah.
So patience is really knowing how to react.
Yeah. God says, "Be angry and sin not." So anger is not the sin, right? That's a natural human emotion that he's given us. Jesus has been angry, and we've seen it. Yeah.
And another thing, patience is not just being quiet, because there can be a lot of people who are very quiet and they're not patient either. They just pretend, church face.
So does love being patient and kind mean you allow yourself to get run over?
No, sometimes you have to step back and pray about it and give yourself time.
Yeah.
Space and distance and time sometimes the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, sometimes you.
Patience is take a few steps back, surround yourself with encouragement, things like that, and you control the pace.
Mhm.
motivates with the other person that you're in conflict with or whatever.
Yeah, to your point, sometimes it does require a bit of a pulling back, whether it be physically. We don't need to be around each other for a certain period of time. If you're in a marriage relationship and you're discussing, we'll have it, call it heated fellowship with one another, right? If that's happening and it's elevating, sometimes there might be hey, let's cool off for a couple minutes, right? Let's cool off. Or, dealing with kids. You see one parent getting their buttons really pushed and you tag in. All right, hey, you go to the other room, I got it from here. Stephanie and I do that all the time. She tags me out with Cooper, I tag her out with Summer because me and Cooper are the same, her and Summer are the same, and just we see it. But in that scenario, you have somebody else looking out for you, right? If I was doing that with Clay, I venture to say John might say, hey, you two, y'all need to separate. Let's figure this out. And so sometimes it takes somebody else. How else might you ensure that you're able to remain patient and kind in the face of things that may tempt you to not be so?
I think it's easy to remember that, or not easy to remember. We should remember that whoever you're dealing with you're just as imperfect as they are.
Okay.
You don't have a right to say that I'm better than you. You're wrong. I've been wrong. I'm gonna give you patience like I would want patience in that situation. We should think that way. I'm not saying we do.
Yeah.
It's simple, not easy, right?
How many times have you been treated a certain way by somebody and you think, boy, that was really uncalled for, and that was frustrating. And you know what? I'm gonna go tell them off a little bit. I'm gonna go let them know that was not okay. And on your way, if someone says, hey, did you know so and so's mother died? Oh, right. Maybe they're going through something. Okay? Maybe there's a challenge that this person. I'm not saying it's okay for them to be rude and unkind to you, but sometimes when you have the perspective of the additional information that's going on, it's a little bit easier to be a little patient, be a little kind, and offer a little grace because you understand that there's some other factors playing in there. I think that's always something to keep in mind because as well and as much as we've talked about wanting to really get in and know one another and spend the time with one another so that we know what's going on, there's always things going on that we don't know about. There always is. There's things going on in the lives of everybody here that many of us don't know about. And I think that's another reason for our time needed to get to know one another. Because if you do, you know what their character truly is. And when something is outside of that character, it's pretty easy sometimes to just, that's not them. I'm going to let that one go because I'm sure, there's something going on. I know they didn't mean it. Right? You give the benefit of the doubt. Okay. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in truth. My question here with that is, the first time I read it, I thought, have I ever rejoiced in wrongdoing? What's a scenario where we might rejoice in wrongdoing?
Enabling behavior that as a Christian is wrong.
Okay. Can you think of an example?
Yeah, but I don't want to say it out loud.
Okay, no, I'm not trying to. I hear you.
I'm just saying, some friends or whatever that you're with.
Okay.
And, they're okay doing something and they know it's not right and they know that it's not right and things like that. So
Okay.
you just have to, rejoicing with wrongdoing is basically saying, okay, I'll give in to what they're doing because, I don't want to lose this friendship or I don't want to.
My first thought to read this passage was, well, that's not something I've ever done or we've ever done. And then I thought about the Christian world, quote unquote, today. There's a lot of rejoicing in things outside of what the Bible teaches. Whether it be, modesty, whether it be homosexuality, whether it be different roles within the church, all roles within marriage. I mean, there are a lot of things now that in the Christian world, by and large, you were given a high five and pat on the back if you're tolerant of those things. That is something that I think is a whole lot more prevalent than I realized before I really dove into this verse. And I started thinking through it, and I'm like, boy, there's a lot of that going on today. There's a lot of, you know, and it used to be, it was called out. Then it was, oh, we'll just kind of ignore it and act like it's not there. Now it's celebrated. It is a celebrated, thing. And we have to make sure that we're not falling into that. And that, you know, in this passage, it's very specific that if we do that, you are not showing love.
I'm wondering if the context of this, pointing back to chapter 12,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of it that way. Never rejoice at the wrongdoing. So people were jealous over somebody else having a certain gift.
Mm-hmm.
And that person is being jealous. I'm not sure what the word is. You're not the jealous, or you're the jealousy. You're the jealousy in this situation.
I'm following up with you. Yep.
And the other person's not getting chewed out for being the selfish or the jealous person.
Mm-hmm.
You can go, you got in trouble for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of an attitude, that's not right.
Yeah.
That's not having the right attitude. That's not rejoicing. That would be if they were happy that person's not getting chewed out for being the jealous person. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
What if I say, you know, we've got we got to invite a friend Sunday, and I'm thinking, boy, they should ask me to lead sing it because we get out home the best. And they asked John to lead sing it. And I went to Clay, I'm like, can you believe they did that? And you're like, yeah, that's crazy. Whereas I venture to say, if I said that, you'd be like, Logan, that's not what it's about, man. Like, why are you worried about that? Why don't we focus on the people walking in the door? Hey, isn't one of your responsibilities as a deacon, guest evangelism and meeting people? And, yeah, you're right. Okay, but focus back on that. You're right. Instead, you're like, yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, you absolutely should be doing that. You're way better than he is. Right? Okay, silly example, but that kind of context is I got a little bit jealous, and instead of calling me out on my jealousy and putting me back on the right path, you fed into that. Right? And if I continue with that, all it's going to do is create a division. And then we got those who think John's the best hog leader, and those who think me is, okay, silly example, but you get the idea. Yes, ma'am.
I think going along with what Clay said.
You're going to try to translate your husband here?
But I don't think we think about it in rejoicing, but if you think of the passage on, whatever is good, whatever is lovely, think on these things. So if we're not rejoicing in the good and the truth and what we can do to build one another up, but instead, again, I don't think if we think that it's rejoicing, but if you're more focused on like, can you believe what so-and-so is doing? Like, they've got problems. Like, do you know what so-and-so is doing? They really need to get their act together. It's not a rejoicing, but it's like in a way, we're almost getting our joy off of feeding on what negative is going on versus rejoicing in the truth and what's good and encouraging.
Yeah. It's kind of the idea of the Pharisees praying, saying, thankfully I'm not like this guy here.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of the attitude, I think, right?
Yes. And is it okay to be thankful of the blessings we have, the gifts we've been given? And yes, as long as we're thankful that we get to serve God with those. And we're not thankful because we think it makes us better than someone else. Steph, you want to say something?
No.
Okay. Sorry. All right.
Unless you want me to.
I mean, I know. I'm not going to stand in the way. Okay. Verse 7. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. I want to ask, I think we can clearly say bears all things, long-suffering, patient, you know that. Believes all things. What does it mean to believe all things? Because we've been pretty specific on there's right, there's wrong. There's correct attitudes, there's wrong attitudes. We believe all things. Is that a contradiction?
It goes along with faith.
Ma'am?
I think it goes along with your faith.
Okay.
If you have faith that all things are going to work out good.
I think also in this context, though, if you back to the context of if somebody has a certain gift, you're going to believe that they have that gift for a reason. It's okay for them to have that.
Okay.
That's okay.
Any other thoughts?
Generally believe the best of others.
Say it again.
You generally believe the best of others.
Okay.
You don't assess sinful motives or evil motives to somebody just because you took something that they said wrong. Maybe you took it wrong, it wasn't what they said.
You ever got a text or an email and read it one way and got real frustrated and then talked to somebody and realized, boy, I was way off. That wasn't nearly as bad as I thought. You know, written word, whether it be text, whether it be email, whether it be whatever, is, the tone of that is whatever tone is in your head at the time, right? Not necessarily the one intended by the sender. And so if you do assume positive intent, if you do give the benefit of the doubt, if you do read it in the most positive light possible, then you're more likely to give that grace and have that patience. And again, you're believing that it is a good scenario. If it's not, it will come to light. Like, you'll see that. But again, it's better to give the benefit of the doubt there.
This wife should text with a lot of emojis.
Yes, lots of smileys and hearts.
That is-
This is a sad.
That is the language of the day is emojis. We'll have that. Jenny will teach the next class on
Yes.
emojis.
I will speak to emojis.
Or just send the gifs or whatever it is,
GIF.
the gifs for crying and, you know.
We're going to argue GIF versus GIF for a minute.
things up and-
GIF stands for graphic interface, so I go to RG. But,
Don't worry, I got my thing.
all right.
We get it.
Verse 8, love never ends. As for prophecies, they will pass away. As for tongues, they will cease. As for knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. So, all of these spiritual gifts that have been given, that are out there, that they're fighting over, what happens to them over time? They go away. These will stop, right? We talked about it at the initial point is those were apostles, delivering spiritual gifts to people. Those people being able to use those to spread the word, to validate what it was that they were saying, to get the word out there. But that was going to be the end of it, right? They could not pass it on further. At some point, the apostles will be no more, as will they. And so that's the end of it. But what remains? Love. Love remains. So if you do it with the right attitude, then that goes to the next generation, to the next, to the next, to the next. This is, this is a passage for me, and an idea there as far as it never ending, that hits home as a parent, that hits home, as somebody that is responsible for young people and how they grow up, and, then they're going to be the ones that carry it on to their kids and their kids. And we've talked about the impact that, one person can have on the following generations and how impactful that is. So don't let that be something that we take for granted. It then goes on and says, when I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. What specifically do you think here is the childish ways he's talking about? Jealousy? Yes, ma'am?
I was thinking, love never ends. The spiritual gifts were to complete showing mankind who God was.
Mm-hmm.
That love is never gonna end.
Mm-hmm.
And the law was brought to us to show us what was right or wrong. And yeah, a lot of times we say we want to do it with the right reason, loving, but how many times have I also heard, you don't feel like being here, you should come here. So, is that true or not? Sometimes you've got to do what you're supposed to do, and hopefully that love will come. Same way here.
Mm-hmm.
When you're a child, you're taught what's right or wrong. There's, God he could have done this, but do you think it would have been any better if he had sent Jesus first and not told the law? Don't think so. I think God knows what he's doing. So you've got to follow that.
So if you find yourself in that mode that you started with there, if I'm not having a whole lot of love right now, I don't really want to be here, but I'll just go because I have to. Why might that be important?
Well, I can't go because I have to, meaning I trust God, I believe God, I hope God, I know he knows all things. I'm hoping that will impact me into a better understanding.
Another example, anybody ever gone to a nursing home to visit somebody and on the way in you thought, I don't want to be here? I have, I'll admit it. I didn't feel that way when I left. Never have. Right? It was good. It was good that I was here. It was good that I got to spend time here. And it helped me, right? And that's not why I went, but it really put things back in perspective. Yes.
And I agree so much. Usually, if I'm in a mood and I don't want to do whatever I don't want to do, in a mood, if I go ahead and do that thing or come, I sometimes hear or experience just what I needed to get me over that and get myself back on track. Not only that though, how much encouragement do you give someone else? They can't know what's inside. They don't know if you don't want to be there or not, but they see you there, and that encourages them anyway. Whether they know what you're dealing with or not, just because they're there and doing that thing, that's great, you know? We just are happy to see each other, so.
Well, before class started, I was sitting here and I looked up at Jenny. She was like, smile. And she didn't know if I was not smiling because I was sad about something that happened or something in my life, or if I was just trying to figure out what was the first thing I'm going to say in this class. Right, which that's what it was. Thank you. Like, that's somebody that, like, hey, that's not a typical face. Let's make sure everything's cool. I like that. Yes, sir.
I'm looking at where verse 11 is. Between the thought in 10 and the thought in 12.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that to be more or less like how the old law was a tutor and brought us along. These spiritual gifts were actually part of the gospel tutorial, bringing everybody along, developing into the revelation of the gospel. And so I really think that's more the context of that verse is that, look, these are going to go away. These are things that are just helping us to think and reason and see things, but they're going to go away. When I became mature, I put the childish things away.
Mm-hmm.
And then it goes on to 12.
Go ahead and read 12.
For now we see in the mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now in part, but then I will know fully, just as I have also been known fully. So it's Brother Hartwriter in the book explained that mirrors back then were just polished metal.
Yeah.
Didn't have mirrored glass. So
look cloudy.
You couldn't really see. You could see an image, but it wasn't an accurate image. When you look at somebody face to face, you see the real thing.
Yep.
And that's kind of the whole context of this section right here.
Well, then he finishes that up. After saying we put away childish things, we're now going to be able to see clearly. Faith, hope, and love abide, these three. But the greatest of these is love. And as we've already said, the reason it's the greatest is because it continues. It continues on perpetually after these spiritual gifts may pass away. Why does faith and hope not continue forever?
At some point in heaven, the reason faith is over,
Yep.
or need for hope, but God continues.
Yeah, no longer need to have faith or hope if you're there with them, looking at them. You're there, you've achieved it, it's now happening, and love continues. Okay. Any other thoughts on chapter 13 before we jump over into chapter 14? Yes, ma'am.
This is right, that's something that made it something go in my head. Where it says, then I shall know fully as even as I have been fully known. God knows us fully, but even thinking of these decisions they're having with all of their gifts, they're focused on different parts right now. And when they reach that perfection, that maturity, that love will allow them to see each person fully as a brother and sister, as a Christian, as a whole, and not these gifts and these parts. They will be fully known.
Good point. God doesn't look at us through a cloudy reflection at all. He sees our entire being. It makes it very clear. That's a good point. Okay. Now over into chapter 14, he starts off with right after having said, but the greatest of these is love. Again, let's just assume there's no division here. Then the very next phrase, pursue love and earnestly desire the spiritual gifts, especially that you may prophesy. So he circles back around to spiritual gifts here, tied it back into everything he just said about love. Now pursue love. This is important. This is why I just laid everything out. And earnestly desire the spiritual gifts. Okay. Does it seem weird at all that he spent a lot of time scolding them on desiring certain spiritual gifts, But then he comes back and says, desire spiritual gifts.
No, they have a purpose, and they're supposed to use a proper attitude and approach.
Yeah. It's okay that you desire spiritual gifts. Don't get tied up into which one you have or receive or are able to utilize, because they're all important. And I want you to desire them because they serve the purpose of spreading the word, which is what I want to do. But then he goes in and he says, especially that you may prophesy. Okay, so we spent all this time talking about how one spiritual gift isn't more important than the another. Then he says, let's really focus on those that of prophecy.
Quick comment though, at the end of chapter 12, he says there in verse 31, but earnestly desire the higher gift. It's okay to desire these things. You should desire those things.
Mm-hmm.
But this when he stops and kind of pauses, like he said, and says, so here's why it's important to desire these things. Make sure you do it with the right reasons, the right motives, the right intent. And then he finishes up coming back into it. Chapter 14 is kind of the structure of it, how it comes off to me. So.
Okay. Why would he specify prophecies here?
It tells you in verse 3.
Okay. Go ahead.
On the other hand, the one who prophesies speaks to people for their upbringing and encouragement and consolation.
Okay. Verse 2, for one who speaks in tongues speaks not to men, but to God. For no one understands him, but he utters mysteries in the Spirit. On the other hand, the one who prophesies speaks to people for their upbuilding and encouragement and consolation. All right, so with this, if you have the gift of prophecy, you have a very clear and direct route to be able to share information with others. Now, verse 2 is often misunderstood. It says, for one who speaks in tongues speaks not to men, but to God. For no one understands him, but he utters mysteries in the Spirit. This verse is often utilized to rationalize what we see and hear today when people claim to be speaking in tongues, where it's gibberish and things that nobody understands, but you're not supposed to. I'm speaking to the Spirit, right? I'm speaking to God. Is that what this is saying? Clay says no. How do we know that?
God's the only one that knows what's in the heart of that man.
Okay.
He's talking more about prayer.
Okay. Let's keep reading. It says, on the other hand, the one who prophesies speaks to people for their upbuilding and encouragement and consolation. The one who speaks in tongues builds up himself, but the one who prophesies builds up the church. Now I want you all to speak in tongues, but even more to prophesy. The one who prophesies is greater than the one who speaks in tongues, unless someone interprets, so that the church may be built up. Okay. That last phrase is important because right up until that point, this can feel contradictory from the things we've talked about before. All the spiritual gifts are the same. They're all important. They're all necessary. But here we are here. The one who speaks in tongues builds up himself. The one who prophesies builds up the church. Now, I want you to speak in tongues, but even more to prophesy. So it sounds like he's saying this one's more important. Yes, ma'am.
I just,
Clarify.
no, not clear. I mean, this is whatever, but something just hit me. If I were back then, and I had the gift of tongues, would I not go, whoa, it's edifying. God thinks I'm a vessel for him.
Okay.
Not any better. I'm not using it the wrong way, but that is edifying to think that you're going to be something for God. So, but it's only going to edify me unless there's somebody out there that understands that language.
Yeah.
So it does edify you if you are given a gift.
Yeah.
Just don't carry it too far.
Yeah. Good point. Anything to add to that?
Logan,
Yes, sir.
you started that section off by asking a question. Does verse 2 apply to people claiming to speak in tongues today? And it does not, because it's a spiritual gift, which ceased with the death of the first generation of people that received those gifts.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, in this context, to me, and he gives the reason here. The one who prophesies is greater than the one who speaks in tongues, unless someone interprets it. So if you have that gift of speaking in tongues, but there's nowhere there to interpret it, you can only be so effective, or not effective, right? If I stand up here and I deliver this whole lesson to you guys in German, how many of you in here speak German? Oh, I thought there was one or two. We got a little bit here. Yeah, Little, okay, and there might be a little bit. So you guys might get a little something out of it, but nobody else is, right? It would be pretty cool because I don't speak German, right? And I would be like, hey, I can speak German now all of a sudden. That'd be cool.
Don't know what I'm saying.
I have no idea what I'm saying, and you guys would get nothing out of it unless we have one interpreter anyway. So that's kind of the point to be made here. Again, the purpose here, so that the church may be built up. You know, that's the purpose of all of this. And so if you're somebody who has the gift of prophecy, that is a valuable thing in this scenario. Verse 6 says, now, brothers, if I come to you speaking in tongues, how will I benefit unless I bring you some revelation or knowledge or prophecy or teaching? If even lifeless instruments, such as a flute or a harp, do not give distinct notes, how will anyone know what is played? You guys ever, I know some of you have been to a symphony. You ever heard them warming up? That sounds terrible, right? It's just like, all over the place. And you're like, what is going on here? Like, then all of a sudden the conductor gets up there and gets them on the same page, same key, and all that. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever heard, right? And that's kind of the scenario that we have here. Flutes or harps, they can sound great, but if there's not a distinct note, nobody knows what's happening here. Verse 8, and if the bugle gives an indistinct sound, who will get ready for battle? Right? If there's just a noise coming out of it that is not understood as to what this noise means, then nobody knows what to do with that. You think about this, bugles were used to, that was the texting of the day, right? You got to get the message out there to the troops, let them know what's going on. You play a certain note or a certain sound or a certain syncope, and they knew what that meant, and they would jump to action. Verse 9 says, so with yourselves, if with your tongue you utter speech that is not intelligible, how will anyone know what is said? For you will be speaking into the air. There are doubtless many different languages in the world, and none is without meaning. So there's a lot of languages. They all have meaning. They're all important. But if I don't know what the meaning of that language is, he says in verse 11, I will be a foreigner to the speaker, and the speaker a foreigner to me. So with yourselves, since you are eager for manifestations of the Spirit, strive to excel in the building up of the church. So again, back to the purpose. Make sure you're focused on the building up of the church. I laughed. I was reading through, mindless stuff on internet, and it was reviews from people, travelers, and there's people from the U.S., from Spain, and they were very frustrated that there were so many foreigners there that didn't speak English. That was what they said. Okay, never mind. You were the foreigner, but the point that they were trying to make is I didn't understand anything that was going on there. I didn't get it. I was in a foreign place. They were frustrated by that. As silly as it sounded, the way they said it and their lack of realization that they were the foreigner. The point is that if you have this gift of tongues and you're listening to it, but there's no interpretation, then it doesn't do you any good. He says here in verse 13, therefore, one who speaks in a tongue should pray that he may interpret. For if I pray in a tongue, my spirit prays, but my mind is unfruitful. So with that, I want to ask the question, and we've clearly laid out that speaking in tongues is not something we do today, but how might this concept be something that we do? Yes, ma'am.
Not the tongue part, so you may be going with something else, but just, it's not enough to know you have a gift from God, even in today's terms of gift of talent, however you want to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
It's even to what Mom said, like, you might be like, oh, God gave me the talent of singing, sing me, right? But if you don't ever pray for a way to use that talent to help others, the whole point of the church is to build up and edify one another and help us go to one goal. So for whatever gift you have, you need to pray that you may use it to His glory, to building up the church.
Oftentimes before our Bible classes, we'll have prayer. One of the common themes that is prayed is that the teacher will be able to explain things in a way that is easily understood. That's what came to mind when I read this. No, I'm not up here speaking in tongues. I've got a little bit of heavy redneck accent, so some of you might not understand everything I say. Siri sure doesn't when I try to do the voice thing. But in general, you understand what I'm saying. But am I doing it clearly and in a way that you're going to be able to gain something from that? Is there another way to put it? Is there another phrase? I went to a conference this week. We did a lot of leadership training, and the idea there was matching your style and your delivery to what the needs of the listener is. Some people might fully understand what's going on and have it all figured out, and they just need a little bit of encouragement. Some people might be really excited about taking something on, but have no idea what it is that they're doing, so they might need more direction. And so, again, just like Paul said, I became this to this people and this to this people. You have to look for ways to get it across clear. And to me, praying for that in this context is similar to what he's laying out here. Okay, we are out of time. Anything else with the last 15 seconds that you'd like to share? Okay, we will pick up here around verse 14, 15 on Wednesday. You're asking to get the speaker over here.
Well, in 12, it sounds like there's the interpreter and there's the.
So is there, so yes, there's a gift of speaking. I think we all agree on that.
But
What
that
you're
means
saying is,
speaking a different language that I don't know.
okay, there might be some people who hear it in their language. There might be other people who hear it in a language they don't typically know, but now they do. Is that what you're saying? So is there a spiritual gift of interpretation that, for instance, if you already speak German and I speak German, that's not a spiritual gift. But if you don't speak German, then I'll speak German and understand German. Okay. That might be a fun conversation.
Well, I just thought I knew what it was in that term.
Yep.
Paid attention when I read this chapter
Yep.
before, because I feel like I'm confused about something.
I think
I'm confused about something.
I think I was with you in that for the longest time. I thought speaking in tongues was this gibberish that was thrown out there.
Right.
And everybody could understand that gibberish.
See, I thought it was me just talking to you, but you're a German person, so you heard me in German, even though I'm speaking. That's what I think it is.
I think that's probably more accurate. Yep.
And so, but then this version more sounds like they're speaking a different language, like they're.
Or are you just speaking, and the German, the Italian, and the Frenchman all understand you?
Well, that's what it is. I'm sure that's what it is next to, but I'm confused what it is here after reading all that.
Okay.
And maybe it doesn't matter, you know? I know it's C, so it doesn't matter, but I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not, it's not getting right.
Well.